When that starts to happen with more and more campaigns, I start to think it's not a bug, it's a feature. Hey, it's Chris. Crowdfunding Roundup. New stuff this week, like always. Hopefully, not as many games as last week. 24 is a ton of things to get through, read, summarize, and edit. So, we'll see where things are at this week, but let's go big or go home. As always, let's go. Nature, standalone evolution. 5 modules. Additional gameplay content. We'll talk about pricing. We'll get to that. It's got $194,000 though at the time of me filming that. Freaking good. But it's also a lot more expensive than I was expecting. Let's just cut to that elephant in the room right now, right? You want the digital? Fantastic, $30. But it's also early access for some of this stuff online, so you're paying for something that's going to be a little bit spaced out. Base game price, alternate art promo pack, and mini module, $39. I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty freaking sweet. But then we get into the issue that I really hate seeing, right? Additional player count bundled with gameplay content and non-gameplay content. And you can't really piecemeal it nearly as well. We'll get down there. But what is nature as an evolutionary adaptation? You're going to have a water hole in the center that's going to be full of food that your, species are going to need to eat. And you're going to be having them eat either the plants or the meat. And that's going to be how they're going to survive. Otherwise, they go extinct and you lose them. But if you lose them, those characteristics that you utilize to make them good in the first place, you can reuse those to make something else better later. And what you're doing is you're drawing 5 cards on a round by round basis in order to use them through the 2 phases that are going to be present. The 5 modules as well that are going to be going along with this are all going to offer different dynamics in how the game is going to shape up. Because all you do instead of drawing from, say, the regular deck is you just put them next to and you get your choice of where you want to draw from. Knowing the nature of those decks, though, is going to be very important if you're going to utilize them in the first place. Flight, Jurassic, Natural Disasters, Arctic Tundra, and Amazon Rainforest. So I didn't realize that Evolution had really sold 500,000 copies, but that's freaking amazing, right? What you're doing is you're growing your population, and you're going to be having several ways to play these cards in the first phase in order to, well, succeed and grow in general. You must adapt to the threats that are going to be there, starvation as well as predators. I'm not going to say predation. That doesn't sound right coming out of my mouth, right? And that's from someone who normally mispronounces all sorts of words. 4 rounds, or 5 if you add the module. Like I mentioned, you're drawing those 5 cards up, gaining your new species, and then doing the 2-phase system of the adaptation and the feeding. Adaptation, like I said, you're going to be discarding cards to either increase the population or the actual body size of the creature in the first place up to a level 4, which they say is like one of the deer or elk or antelope or something along those lines, right? You can also, though, play the card differently as a trait to change how it's going to be behaving. And that plays as well into the second phase of things in the adaptation. Fast to evade predators, opportunistic, clawed. That's what you're going to be utilizing and sort of balancing out as a mechanic. In the feeding phase, though, there's a limited number of food, and you basically just go around. And after you've grabbed food, you can also have cards that will allow you to get more food out there, but someone else might be able to eat that. So that's what you're going to have to balance the success of your species versus everyone else's. And you may lose some population because that's the way things are going to go. How do you win? Well, most points based on your population, keeping them alive, all of those things are going to earn you points along the way. Now, they mention a little bit of the synopsis of what these are as well. There are event decks creating scenarios with the natural disasters, and then the rest are going to give you new traits in terms of how the adaptations are going to change. Like I said, you just place it next to it. Gives you the slightest of brief summaries down here, but you can also click the rulebook on each one of these if you're really so interested. You don't want to do conflict? Give the flight module. You want to be a frickin' strong dinosaur, colossally invincible? Go with Jurassic. You want natural disasters, scenarios, stories, experiences. Arctic Tundra, I don't know what actually a challenge means, but then Amazon Forest, bluffing and surprises. So they say 2 modules a year for the next 10 years. The issue I have, though, is, I don't mind that, but at the same time, when they put out the time frame down here of when some of these are going to be putting out. You're going to have them ready and you're just going to like hold them back. And I feel weird about that, right? Like, I'm not super against, you know, the crowdfunding backer thing, getting it sooner than retail, because, you know, it's fine. It's an incentive. At the same time, I also don't think it's super awesome, because most of the time, even if I get it later than someone at retail, I'm getting a better deal and I'm usually getting more content. So what I'm afraid of is that this is going to become scalped hugely on the secondary market if people want these modules, and there's just not going to be any availability whatsoever for like a freaking year after it gets delivered. So that's my only concern. And then the price down here, again, we have to talk about it, right? I love this, but when individual modules are $20, I mean, I'm looking at Summoner Wars, I'm looking at Marvel Champions expansions, right? Which are probably very similar in size and scope. They're running 13-ish. And so that's why I don't like this MSRP, because I know that the MSRP for those things are probably very similar, of like $18. So that's why I look at this and I go, okay, well, it's $109 and you get all this stuff, but I don't really want the 5-player expansion. You know, I don't really want the promo pack. It's kind of like, okay, well, it's a much better deal. It reminds me of other campaigns in the past that I backed, you know, like Madara. It was so much of a better deal as an all-in. But I'm getting like resins and stuff that I don't want. And I'm just going, oh, geez, I'm paying less to get more stuff I don't want. And that just is always a weird thing with me, right? Like, Chris, you're getting too good of a deal. I know it sounds like that, but you know, I don't know how I'm going to feel about all this stuff. I don't know how I'm going to feel about the promo pack. I don't know all of those things are going to be a great fit for me. It's the FOMO of getting it, or more in this case, not being able to get it for so long if you love it. Because truth be told, you know what? I'm a big take that player, so I don't even know if I'd like Flight. I don't know if I'd like the scenario-driven natural disasters one. But if I don't get it, again, you're FOMOing there because you're not going to be able to get it for a long time. And so that's my only problem with it. I mean, that I just got to put it out there. And then there's plenty of preview and review content, and they run you through the timeline of when this is going to be. But you know, I guess it's not that long out. Although, ooh, never mind. Rainforests and natural disasters are, you know, over almost a year and a half away. And if you have it done for backers by, I guess that's only about a 6-month delay. So that's not too bad, actually. And that's assuming it's on time. So it's maybe not as bad as I'm making it out to be, truth be told. And you know what? It'll probably be all working itself out. But I mean, $109, and I guess that's only a 5 to 6 player expansion. I'm never going to play this with 5 to 6 players. And I guess if I really needed to, I could sell it. But I still really like the concept of this. I just don't know, right? Your promos are good. Your expansions are good. It's still just a lot of money for a base game and 5 expansions. I still have hesitations, no matter who you are, no matter what I do from a backing standpoint, hypocrisy at its finest with myself, with having or needing expansions from the get-go. It's modular and you're modulating it, but you know, I wouldn't mind seeing, you know, one or two of those modules thrown in with the base game for $50 too. That would be ideal. That would be, you know, sort of my chef's kiss, if you will. But we'll see where it goes, because I like it. Speakeasy, the latest love child from Lacerda and Tool. Love you something like Eagle Gryphon Games loves Lacerda and O'Toole, right? I mean, I guess when you're making that much money, you know, these games are bringing in. So I'd love it too. What you're doing here, the latest in the heavies, right? Eagle Games. You're going to be taking the 13-round approach through a 4-phase system each round of slowly gathering in the previous workers played, playing them out, getting your production, sending them to the various places on said map to produce, to upgrade actions, to resource manage. You're getting an upgrade pack. This is what's going to be in there. We don't have a freaking clue because it's an upgrade pack. Well, it's deluxeifications of things that are probably right here in the box in the first place. So that's what I would wonder. Stretch goals. None of the typical stuff. They're getting all silk screened and you're getting more stuff in the upgrade pack. Okay. At the time of you viewing this, the first one should hopefully be revealed so you can check out what they're offering. Now, as we've seen previously on the Eagle Games' previous crowdfunding campaigns, Add-ons. What do you get in those add-ons, Chris? Well, everything that you want to upgrade for everything else, including some stuff that's not game related as well, because it's a copy of a novel, and then other games in the previous deluxe series. You want to know more how to play it? Go try it on Tabletopia. How is it actually differing? Is it actually going to be that much differing than some of the other ones in said catalog in the first place? I don't have a freaking clue. Maybe some of those people doing some previews will be able to give you a little bit more on that side of things. Maybe not. So check it out, I guess, right? The other thing, if you want to pay over double the cost, you can get it instead of September 2025 for $124. We'll talk about that in a second. You can then pay $290. But that one includes shipping. So, you know, only just a whole 100% more than the cost of the other. And truth be told, I was actually, slightly sarcastically, expecting this price to go up. I had to go back and look and compare, right? The last two similar base game projects, Weather Machine and Inventions, were actually both $129. So this is only $124. So it's only $124 for a deluxe Euro. You know what? I'm going to leave it at that. Again, the rule book is on the page. So if you want to know how to play it more, you can actually go right here. The solo rules, as well as the language edition rules, as well as the English rules. If they can do it with a big game as big as this and heavy as this, with a 24-page rule book, setting the standard for every other campaign out there as well, in my opinion. Now, I said that there are 13 rounds as I pull up the rulebook here. Well, 13 of those rounds, not exactly true. There's 11 total player rounds, one setup round, and one final scoring round, as it says here. The 4 acts that you're going to be dividing them in. So there's going to be a little bit of different acts within the game as a whole. And those acts are going to mean that you're going to have diminishing returns in terms of how many of your workers you're taking back. So at the beginning of Act 1, there. The Act 2 there, the Act 3, the Act 4. So returning workers lessening as the game goes on. That's the big thing that you have to be aware of. Turn order may change dependent on the restaurant action, and the Lucky Luciano phase is going to be rewarding for your loyalty as sort of the head of the mob, giving you credit and points, money for what you're able to control in the first place. But there's going to be a little bit of a mob war, and you may have to deal with that as well. And this is tricky, right? Do you want to have this in your heavy worker strategic placement style game? Because what you're doing is you're drawing a number of these tiles, putting them down, and potentially having to defend to exceed the war strength of the mobster, with the building defense that you're doing. And then it shows you what some of these mobster cards are going to look like as they're attacking. The cops patrolling as well is something you're going to have to deal with. So there is some pick up and deliver, I think, as well, because you're going to have to manage the resources going back and forth. It gives you a few examples of what you're dealing with here. And so again, even though I said it's only 24 pages, you can see how text heavy and interdynamically connected all of these things are going to be. So it might not be the longest rule book on this video. It's definitely up there for complexity's sake. So does that tempt you? Are you interested now? And you know what? I'd wonder that how many of these 3,500 other people at this point have at least, let's say, 2 other Lacerdas of their same pedigree. I'm just curious. Or how many people of this have all of them? How many people of this is this going to be the first one that they have? I'd be curious to see those stats breaking down. Anyway, I'm not going into the mechanics any further. Go check it out yourself and, get a better summary in that sense. Speakeasy. Then Deliverance, Council of the Fallen with a reprint. Now, again, this is a very interesting test point in terms of what they're offering, right? Because with the base game, with the expansion, there are only pledge levels for the deluxe. If you want to get some of the add-ons, sure, but it's going to be, well, you get deluxe here, and that's miniature based, and you're almost doubling the size of the content when we scroll down here and you start to see what is there. This is an angelic versus demon-esque, Fallen Prince's demons, if you will, head-to-head skirmish, cooperative, but also campaign scenario driven, tied together with asymmetric upgradable characters, angels, that are going to have different abilities in how you want to customize them, along with the equipment that's going to go in that sense. You're going up against the darkness, trying to fend it off while still trying to fight the enemies, make it to the boss, and whip out a miracle victory in the end, because this is also a very hard game. all the accolades, all the quotes that you can see there, all the combos of how you're going to be doing the powers on the right side and the equipment on the left, which is going along with the unique abilities that are in the middle on the main card, and the right stuff that's going to potentially modify it in addition. Those are the treasure cards, the talent cards, and then 1 to 5 player, but you can play it at any player count and it works well. The Forces of Evil, as it says here, tactically grid based, and you know what? I like the standees. The acrylic standees down at the bottom look freaking amazing. I think they look better than the miniatures. I'll fight you in the comment section below just to let you know. The darkness that you're going to be battling as a deck-driven card play on the board that you can see there, that you're going to be slowly revealing and manipulating the characters as well as the demons on the board, and then eventually making it to the end and defeating the boss. In this deluxe expansion, though, you have 9 more angels, you have 135 more talents, and you've got, 6 more demon princes. And so that sounds like a fair amount, Chris. Okay, I understand that. Oh, 7 more minions, and the awesome looking regular standees, and they're all the bad guy stuff down there as well. And that's going to cost you $80, though. That's an expensive expansion. I'm sorry, it is. Especially when the base game is only $89. And the base game, again, miniatures, but 9 angels there. So literally double the amount, almost the double amount of talent, and you're also getting almost double the amount of the princes. If I go down here, it was 6 to 7. So that's tons of freaking content. So price-wise, comparatively, awesome. But I'd also make the argument that if I didn't have the deluxified version at the first time around, or I have the acrylic standees that you can see that are freaking sweet here, you know, this says wait for retail on it too, or wait for, you know, secondary market and hope that they put one out. Now, I didn't see anything when I was glancing at this page previously, the gameplay bundle all in here. So that was, you know, a slight savings comparatively, 79 and 89. So 80 plus 90 is, well, that's $170, $168. So you're saving $19 getting them both if you don't have either of them. So, I mean, for deluxifications and miniature campaign-driven scenarios and the amount of content you're getting, I'm not going to make that value argument. I think that's fine. So you can add in all the extra stuff that you want. So that's fine too. I just love the standees. I just love them. They look so pretty in all of those games. There's enough content and comments out here. Truth be told, I haven't played my base game enough to be able to put out a full review yet. I mean, it's just been a horrible, horrible year for me being behind on stuff. So it's another one on my list of things to hopefully get out by the end of the year. A few stretch goals, a little content, a little upgrades. So it's a little bit of everything along those lines, and you can try it out online completely. And you know what? I agree. I echo this sentiment. Even if you're not like looking for a biblically themed game, it's still a solid game, regardless of what you think about the rest of the side of things. So don't be judging it from that aspect of things. Give it a look-see, because I would argue, and I think that's what a lot of these quotes are arguing too, is that, you know what, even if you're not a fan of the theme, if you're a fan of the genre and the mechanics as a whole, they might win you over regardless. So still $172,000. Interesting though, 1,100 people. Let's look at this breakdown really quickly. 100 people access to Pledge Manager, 192 backers there, and Deluxe Base Game Edition, what are we getting here? 19 people. So everything new. Wow, okay, so people are really loving the deluxifications here. You have almost half, well over half of your people doing the deluxified everything, and then everything down here for $250. So it's a little skewed more top heavy than I was expecting, but there you go. Deliverance, Council of the Fallen. Ice and Idols, $30,000. We're going here from Inside Up Games, and you can get your name written on the box. But this is the real reason you're doing it. You're getting in as collectors the new character content and new pathway tiles of teleportation. And so what you're doing for $57, including the standard, the quick play, and the asymmetric player powers, you're going to be navigating this terrain on a looping basis, in the sense that you're going to be having, I believe, 5 action points per turn to move, to pick up idols, to drop idols, or to play your powers. And that's how you're going to be doing things, is because the idols that you're going to be picking up and putting onto altars will give you one of 2 different ways of upgrading your character when you drop them off the idol of the 5 different types. They may give you an asymmetric power that is going to last the rest of the game, or they allow you to manage the research aspect portion of this, which is going to be how you're going to be getting a lot more end game victory points by creating pattern matching on a shared research sort of grid board. The 4 unique skills that they talk about here mostly involve manipulating those tiles that we were talking about, because that's also where some of the idle powers are going to come in as well as you're moving. And the looping in that I mentioned is that one side loops over to the other, not only for movement of your character, but sometimes looping those tiles around will actually slide them all down one and then back over to the other side. You're unlocking performing research like I mentioned. It shows you what exactly the 5 are, sliding along pathways, rotating the pathways. You get an extra action point and getting up to 6 per turn here with the Sapphire, carrying 2 different idols or rotating the whole frickin' thing along the way. The 4 different things that will happen action-wise though, as you're doing all of the other said stuff, is you're gonna have ice collapsing, blocking paths. It's going to be shifting from all the way around like I just mentioned, rotating the board, as well as just losing out and chilling out and having to deal with being delayed. So most points at the end of those rounds and you win. 2 modes, quick play and then regular. These tiles are going to be sort of arranged in different figurations on the board itself. You can see that the different walls and different barriers are going to prevent you from going different ways alongside of things. And it's no stretch goals, so you don't have to worry about what that's offering. It gives you the unique asymmetric powers on top of all of those other things I mentioned. And the adaptation from a tactically, while slightly strategic given game is there. If you want block and key, you can also get that. If you're not familiar with that one, is a 3D aesthetic dual tiles, as you can see there, stacked one on top of each other to make the line of sight from the side match up to what you need to as you stack these 3D blocks on top of each other. So you can get both of those if you're so interested. Right there, you can kind of see, right? It has to make that side profile of that picture as you're stacking them. It runs over the 2 modes. It runs you over the deluxifications if you want to play more, and it tells you that it's language independent. Try it out online. Rulebook is there as well. A few videos down here to give you some real look-sees, and that's pretty much everything you need to know from inside up. Nice little twist on things. A lighter version of Ice meets sort of a quest for El Dorado, if you will. Ice as the one from this way where you're diving down or digging down those tiles as a multi-layer tile situation. This one is more manipulation on a quest for El Dorado type vibe. So I like it. There you go. Ice and Idols. Skara Brae and the Anarchy. Almost $250,000 here from Garphill. Get one, get both, get your promo pack, get your meta coins, as always. Don't get them now, don't get them now, that's okay. They give you 2 separate games here, the highlights and the big picture overview, because they're a little bit out of my depth, truth be told, like some of the other Garphill ones are, right? So Anarchy is taking a Hadrian's Wall approach, the standalone spiritual successor, if you will, from that side of things, where you have a 5-round system where you're going to be having 2 different modes at a potentially 3 different difficulties that you're going to be choosing at the beginning of the setup with each different path cards. And you're going to be then taking your path on a round by round basis and then using your workers and your resources to take as many actions as you can before the round ends, and you do it in a simultaneous manner. You have attack cards that are placed in front of your individual player boards. Then at the end of that round, you determine how well you fended off that attack. 34 more pages of rules, though, will tell you exactly how to play. Skara Brae, on the other hand, more of your Euro resource management with a wide variety of strategy, along with a very heavy use of asymmetric action tiles. Getting your asymmetric action tiles, using your workers and your resources in order to go up the furnish and trade tracks along your way. Rulebook, both of them are over here. You can try them out both online, and if you're a video person, you can get it there as well too of how to play. Now, truth be told, Skara Brae is actually on a 24-page rulebook, so the Anarchy is actually a little bit more complex overall. And the promo tokens and promo action tiles are going to be your incentives there for $46 each, respectively. When you scroll down here, you start to see what those promo tiles are, and you can start to say, how much is this worth it for me? 2 special promo tiles for Skara Brae. And Skara Brae comes with 8 of these in the first place, so 2 is not insignificant. And then the copies of the plunder tokens and the beer tokens here for the Anarchy. And there are only 5 plunder tokens, 5 small and 5 large, I guess, of the plunder tokens in the base game as a whole. So again, not actually an insignificant proportion from that aspect of things. You want to see a whole bunch of previews and playthroughs? Here you go, folks. It's all there. Dry erase boards, though, if you really want to get some Hadrian's Wall and Anarchy back to back to back. And some of their previous promos as well, full to space inserts. I wouldn't mind seeing, again, a little bit more on the page. Like, what are these mechanics? How does this compare? By the way, as they say here, no pledge manager. So that's one of the few times you're going to see that. But I wouldn't mind, again, seeing the actual mechanics. Why is Skara Brae that much different than your other action card-based systems that Garphill has done previously? How does this compare anarchy-wise to Hadrian's Wall? If I have Hadrian's Wall, am I going to like this? Is it going to have some highlights, some lowlights, some who's it right fors? I would love to see some of that on the page, no matter how many hundreds of thousands of dollars you raise. I mean, I love the fact that you have both of them online as well as rulebook available, but I think if you just need to see more of this on the page, and that's kind of the theme of some of these games on this video this week, is that this stuff, again, could be right on there. I know it's a ton of stuff, but I wasn't kidding here, right? 40 pages worth of rules. And is that your type of thing? And then they throw a lot of other, little things in here. So it's not just a rules, but it's going through all of the different areas and the mechanics and how they're going to be constructed and how they're going to be competing and how you're going to do tournaments and brew houses and everything else along the lines, including even attacking enemy castles. So if that is any interest to you, go give it a look-see. Now, hopping over to GameFound, Story of Many. We're going to stick with this because, again, this is the big funder of this week. I didn't even know this was launching. So, I mean, my head's always in the sand, but that's nothing new if you're new to this channel. $425,000 at the time of me filming this. And why I'm comparing this directly to that is because there's even less gameplay information on this page of Story of Many than there was with the Garphill situation. And it kind of just gives me the GameFound smoke and mirrors. Although, truth be told, it's Kickstarter, GameFound, backer kit, everything all in one, smoke and mirrors in that sense. And I don't say that, too tongue-in-cheek, but I also say it tongue-in-cheek. I mean, if you're raising $500,000, and nowadays I'm thinking a little bit forward and ahead, and I'm saying, of these 400,000 words that you're telling me are going to be in this game, how many of these are already done? Because we see a lot of hang up and delay in crowdfunding projects with huge narrative components, especially, we'll talk about this as we go down there, multiple languages translating between. That's my other concern. 1,400 backers, $400,000. That tells you expensive pledge levels right there, because the all-in pledge, which will get you not only an extra Sunken Empire expansion, but the ultimate standee collection. And I'm Team Standee, right? But this makes my fingers hurt just thinking about it. $40, not a bad price. It's comparable to a lot of the Pathfinder boxes. 800 MFB standees, right? That is so many. Thinking about having to punch that out just hurts my brain. The other thing that you have to look at this and go is that April 2026. How can you tell me, and this is where I go back to the beginning, that it's going to have 400,000 words if it's not going to be ready for 2 years? That tells me that a lot of this stuff isn't done. This gives me, in case you're wondering, because we haven't even talked about what it is or why I also like the fact that they did the Awakened Realms and separated out the miniatures, because that's what you can do. But where's the gameplay? What is this? All you know is it's a narrative, open world, campaign-esh, scenario-esh game. That's all you're going to get from the page. You're going to have to watch one of the preview videos that are on there. And to be honest with you, after watching a couple of them, I kind of know how they do the open world navigation and some of the exploration. The combat, not still like completely clear in my head, because you're gonna have a separate combat board, but there's gonna be like zones like Primal, and it's gonna be, dice driven, and you can take out enemies before the battle even starts, and you have a narrative overworld exploration and sort of a tech tree with little passive dots that all connect each other, and how you're unlocking things in the 10 different classes that are coming with the base game, and the 2 additional ones with the water expansion, and all the extra little stretch goals you're getting here with a little bit of deluxification and a little bit of extra mini dungeons galore, foreteller narration, and everything else, including even an extra class if you want that. But it's gonna be $120, ish, plus shipping. So is that okay with you? Customization off the charts. Availability, that's going to be the question. They say no retail English version whatsoever. It gives me Dungeon Universalis vibes more than anything else, with more narrative, I guess. Or less narrative? I think more narrative. I don't know though. I don't know. How do you make an assessment of this? Because there's one, preview-ish scenario thing that they've got on the page. And this is a whole lot of content that needs to be fully fleshed out. 42 adventures, plus like another 20 or something in the expansion. Character creation, extensive and profound class progression system, 180 unique enemies. Again, I hear that, and the most apt comparison I have is, Zombicide with Marvel United or whatever else. Are they actually unique? Or are they just slight tweaking variations? Because I've seen half a dozen games in the last 2 years that have that, unique enemies, and they're all just these minor tweaks of slight stat asymmetry, not actual gameplay mechanic. It's dice-based combat. They run you through some of the characters here. We get down past this and you see the world adventures, the story arcs that are going to be available to you, the one-shots as well. It's doing everything for everyone in every way, and adventures and, more Sunken Empire story arc. And again, this is, what Hopium is based on. You have no idea if this game is going to be good. You have no idea if this game is anything going to be like, let's see. Let's wait for it. I haven't talked about it in a while. Storm Sunder. Did you back Storm Sunder? Yeah, you're still waiting for it 3 years later. Are you going to be waiting for this one 4 years from now? I don't know. But this is huge. Again, there's your 4 videos. Or 6-ish. I'll be honest with you. There's not enough information on this page, especially with the scope comparison of what's available to what you're proposing, to make me feel comfortable. If you can have a really cool progression and character customization, I'm awesome for that. But I worry about overhead, I worry about differences, I worry about balance. And for a first time, company putting this out there, that's very ambitious. So we'll see where it goes. It's not short on funds, so kudos for that. Then West Story, a town building game, 22 grand over here on GameFound. It's sort of got a resource management style of things, as you're using dice to activate actions on a turn-by-turn, simultaneous resource management driven by the dice you're going to be rolling at the beginning of every round. You're going to be rolling dice as the starter player at the beginning of the round, and then you're going to strategically gain essentially what you can of buying up to 2 cards per turn and utilizing them to upgrade your actions, and then to use the dice rolling to activate those actions on a said tableau, depending on the color, one at the top of a row or card and the other at the bottom. So pulling up the rulebook here, you can start to see these rows that you're going to be placing your dice in. And if you can get the symbols to match, it'll actually allow you to combo into an additional gathering in that sense. As I mentioned, game round, rolling the dice, then utilizing all of the simultaneous same actions for all players on their boards, and then executing those actions, and then following that, taking your individual player turns after you have collected your resources. And that includes buying 2 cards from the market that I said, and then also trading, picking up a certificate, which are endgame bonus points, as well as facing a villain. And the villain aspect is illustrated down here, because you're going to be using hats and coins as your resources to fight off the villain. But if you have cows, you can use them as a replacement for the missing hats or coins, and they provide you victory points for being able to beat them. Again, in a slightly different, more Euro style aspect of things. There's a whole expansion to go along with this as well. So that's the other reason you're looking at getting it. The stretch goals are, in addition, unlocking a few extras. The core box is only going to cost you $34 with the stretch goals. The early is going to cost you nearly $80+ after it's shipped. But, again, the all-in here is getting you metal coins, dice tray and token upgrades, as well as that expansion that I previously mentioned. So the all-in pledge gets a free expansion in the first 24 hours. It's fine, but I don't know if I want it. So a free expansion is not going to get me a game I don't want in the first place. There's a couple rules videos. There's a couple preview videos, as well as reviews down here, I believe. So if you want more information, how this comboing dice-driven, slight Euro-style mechanism of resource management goes, and you can see. Because again, plenty of videos right there to get a little bit of a taste, if you will. And that's it. That's all you need to know. Shipping is going to be whatever it is. And we're already at 200% of their funding. So they got 30 more days to go. Check it out, West Story. Dinner party. Dinner with infamous people of history, wooing them with drinks and dice rolling. So basically they have a number in the upper left-hand corner. You roll that die, plus or minus, whether or not you're going to put them next to a card that has a green symbol or a red symbol, which either adds to or subtracts to the value needed. And then you just have the most guessed at the end, essentially, with a little bit more nuance. The only thing I have to say is that, well, every game starts with Hitler being on the table. So, you know, when we talked about secret Hitler, that alone is enough to turn people off. Every game has Hitler on the table, and you can make him go to other people's tables to ruin their night. You want 2 expansions with it? Fantastic. You want to know how it plays? Again, too bad. There's a rule book here. That's the only way you're going to know. There's nothing else on the page. Nothing. So, I mean, for having that little information, you're funded and almost at $4,000 at the time of me filming this, so kudos. But it's, you know, a very light driven 3 rolls, try and get a number, use drinks to mitigate, and try to steal other people's guests who they're entertaining back to your own table sort of vibe. So there you go. Split the Hoard. I cut, you choose. It gives me very much a card driven, slight power-esque Isle of Skye, only without all the terrain and the placing of the tiles. Just, you know, drawing 3 treasure cards and using coins gathered and abilities to mitigate what other people are grabbing, because everyone's going to have 3 and you go buy other people's, and whatever's left in yours you keep. And if you don't get to keep any, then you draw 3 from the top of the deck. You go until the deck is out, and that's it. So you just get your abilities and you score your points at the end, because you're going to have asymmetric little classes that are going to go along with it, that are going to score in different ways based on some of the cards that you have or the abilities that are alongside of them, or even the symbology that's going to go with it as well. Print and plays there. Full game is going to cost you, well, April 2025 for, let's see, $21. So there you go. That is Split the Hoard. Fast and sweet. Primordial, Creatures of Pandemonium. $5,000, $15,000 sum total that they're trying to get. I'm going to give you this to you very quickly, but again, it's one of those where I need more on the page. The rulebook is about 30 pages long, although it's a very big font, so it's not actually as long as it looks, but it's more of a Euro resource management as you're moving across this environment, picking up the cubes that are needed to tame the creatures, chain your combos, and then harness that into energy and lessons being completed to score victory points. So, I mean, that's the most basic explanation I can give you. Nuanced, what's the difference? I have no idea with this. Previews and tutorials, that's where you're going to have to see. Symbology heavy card driven aspects that you can check out there. A couple previews on how to play you can see as well. But again, this is one that you need to read the rule books for. So we'll see where it goes. But again, not a whole lot on the page to really say, okay, why am I getting this over other generic fantasy based Euros in that same sense? Not bad, not great, but just sort of, okay, give me more incentive, give me more info, so we'll see where it goes. Who Murdered the Turtle? Social deduction game, which, similarly, I have no clue how to play. You draw secret identity cards where one person's the murderer, sort of in like deduction murder in Hong Kong, and then you draw a roll card. What do those roll cards do? I don't have a clue. Then you draw up a bunch of cards from the deck and you play them, and you get to accuse people, you get to gather clues, and you get to like block stuff with action cards that are available. 9 different types of action cards. What different types are they? No idea. Clue cards. How do they actually work? No idea. You can defend yourself though from someone playing down a murder card, because you're going to try and murder each other. So the murderer wins by eliminating everyone else, or the murderer loses by being eliminated. But, you know, sometimes the murder cards work for you apparently, because they can work for the murderer. But if you're not the murderer, they maybe don't work, because in sudden death, then all of a sudden the murderer is now vulnerable to elimination by murder cards themselves. So, right? I have no idea. That's it. That's everything on there as a whole. There's some game photos. There's a random unboxing from, I'm assuming that's like a TikTok import, but that's everything on the page. So Burning Fish, there you go. Somehow they're funded, 65 people, $4,000. So we'll see where it goes. Give it a look-see. Now we have Parks and Potions. Again, you know, this is not a very long game. It's an 8-page rule book with dice rolling Yahtzee-esque resource collection to mitigate and create new potions to heal creatures to get objectives completed to score endgame victory points over a 5 or potentially up to 6 round situation where you roll the dice 3 times per round and collect 2 of the resources from those 4 dice each time you do it. Now, why isn't half that information on the page? Right. It's not. You'll see that there is a brief overview description of this, right? That essentially what I said, roll the dice, get the resources, mix them together and do that. But nowhere on it does it say how many times you're rolling. It doesn't tell you what you're doing. But if you want to pay double the amount for a deluxeified game that you don't know that you like, you can do that for $30 to $60 and already add a $15 expansion there as well, which begs the question, do you need any extras from that to be compatible with this? It doesn't look like it, at least. That's good. But the expansion here is adding asymmetric beginning of round events, more discovery, because now there's going to be a time where certain resources aren't going to be available because you have to choose to rest during certain die rolls, and then other mission objectives that you're going to have to complete that could be hazardous as well. Weekly reveals, they say right here, a neoprene mat, 3 different modes a la your Cascadias, and that's about it. You want to watch a little preview, one review video, there's that. And then you can finally get down to the rulebook at the bottom of the page, because that's the least important thing on most crowdfunding pages nowadays. At least that's probably what Launch Boom is telling them. Oh, I went there. I'm sorry. But again, like, the rulebook is there. It's not a hard to learn rulebook. There's the mixing guide. There's the accessibility guide. There's the how to play right there. Just wish some of this was on the page. It doesn't take up that much. So that's Parks and Potions. Give it a look-see. Doing really well. Really light, simple, straightforward game. Resource collection, little combination. Looks really good, but wouldn't mind seeing more. So that brings up a really good point, though, at the end, right? When I'm seeing majority of campaigns either not throwing it on there in a hard-to-find section, or even at the end of the page, you know, I start to go, well, you know, sometimes I understand that, you know, like with Go On Board, they're like, it's not pretty enough. Well, one, I don't find that as a good excuse, because you clearly have it. So you're choosing not to put it out there purposefully. Also, you're putting it at the tail end of the page there with Parks and Potions. When that starts to happen with more and more campaigns, I start to think it's not a bug, it's a feature. Sort of like the YouTube app on my phone. I used to always get irritated because I'm like, wow, that's really an irritating bug that anytime I go to anything else on my phone, it stops and doesn't play the music any longer. Nope. That's a feature. They don't want you going anywhere. They want you stuck on their app so you can't do anything else. And that irritates me. That's going to be a whole nother topic, though, because we're going to have a video upcoming talking about my unpopular board game opinions. Oh, you know that's going to be spicy, because, you know, I'm not just going to throw out some generic stuff. I'm going to actually give you some unpopular board game opinions. It's sort of like on the Reddit thing, where they have the unpopular opinion sub, and, you know, 3/4 of them are just popular opinions that are slightly negative. Every once in a while, there's a truly unpopular opinion on there. Like, well, I'm not going to get myself, you know, spoiled in this video for you guys, but tune in. And if you want to hear more, subscribe. So that's it. That's the roundup this week. That's where things are at. And we'll have some interesting stuff this weekend as well. I've got some ranking lists I've got to get out. I've got the Q4. I've got to get the October upcoming crowdfunding, because October is looking forking fantastic. And we also have to do a few other things as well, like Essen. So Essen might come out this weekend. It might be out the beginning of next week too. Talking about way too many Essen games. This has probably been the best Essen for me looking at games as a whole, because I'm starting to see some cracks in the solidness of pure Euro-ness, if that makes sense. Some non-pure Euro-ness for people like me. Don't worry, I'll have some Euro-ness for the people like you as well, though. That's all I got. Stay classy. Have a great freaking weekend. It's one of those weekends. Good luck.